There will be now an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you very much. Let us welcome our guests in the gallery. And we really appreciate your presence in this budget debate. But we just need to indicate that no matter what happens on the floor, try by all means not to participate, whether it's by clapping hands or ululating or doing anything. We just expect you just to watch what happens on the floor. Doesn't matter what sort of art happens on the floor, then you just watch. Thank you very much. The Secretary will read the order.
Debate on vote number 14, Basic Education Appropriation Bill.
Thank you. The Honorable Minister of Basic Education.
Honorable Chair, honorable members and colleagues, MECs from different provinces in particular, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Honorable Chair, we thank you again for this debate on vote 14 of basic education. Chair, let me start by requesting that this August House pay respects towards the 18 children aged between 7 and 15, and the 2 adults who perished in a gruesome accident in the Bronkhorstspruit area in Mpumalanga on the 21st of April this year. And these learners were from Refano Primary School and Mahleng High School. Chair, allow me again to raise serious concerns that we have as a sector about the effects of violent service delivery disruptions taking place across the country. More concerning to us as a sector is when our schools are used as bargaining chips by those aggrieved communities out there. These violent protests, which in most instances have nothing to do with education, rob our learners of countless school hours and days. The violence and vandalism that accompanies many of these recent protests cannot be condoned, irrespective of the perceived and real concerns. We must collectively make it our business to protect and deliver on our children's rights to basic education unhindered. Chair, let me add my voice to the voices out there that are also condemning the violence that is meted out on women and children by male perpetrators. What is nerve-wracking is the ferociousness that the latest victims of recent violence were subjected to. We must all condemn these callous acts committed especially by men on women and children. South Africa will never be a cohesive society we all yearn for when such atrocious acts continue to be committed by humans on others. So we wish to applaud those members of civil society, especially the courageous young men who stood up and decried the recent spate of violence against women by declaring or taking a stance that not in my name. So Chair, going back to our debate, honorable members, let me remind you once again that in 2015, UNESCO adopted the Global Education Agenda, Education 2030. The Global Education Agenda is part of the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals that make up the Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development. So SG4 calls for the inclusive, quality, and equitable education and lifelong opportunities for all. In a local context, we have our own National Basic Education Sector Plan. The Action Plan to 2019 towards the realization of schooling 2030, which is designed to achieve the long-term vision of education as encapsulated in the National Development Plan Vision 2030. The NDP states, I quote, by 2030, South Africans should have access to education and training of the highest quality, leading to significant significantly improved learning outcomes. The performance of South African learners in international standard tests should be comparable to the performance of learners from countries at a smaller level of development, at a similar level of development and with similar levels of access. Our very own world-renowned constitution, which marks its 21st century this year, declares basic education as an inalienable basic right for all South Africans. The constitution, being the supreme law of the land, together with a variety of local, continental, and international conventions, provide the moral imperative and a mandate to government to make access to quality educational opportunities widely available to all South Africans. Therefore, the Constitution, UNESCO SDG 4, the Continental Education Strategy for Africa, and the African Agenda 2063 and the NDP Vision all provide a clear direction to improve access, redress, equity, efficiency, inclusivity, and quality of learning outcomes through the implementation of the medium-term strategic framework and our national strategy for learner attainment. So our sector plan, therefore, strengthens and reinforces a whole system approach intended for the improvement of the quality of teaching and learning outcomes and guides communication and messages around the comprehensiveness of our responses towards research-based findings of basic education systems deficiencies. Credible data information, as well as credible research, continue to help us to identify where there is inefficient coordination. There is tangibly more understanding and cooperation within the basic education sector among officials, partners, business, organized labor, and other stakeholders. So, Chair, we have reported widely and repeatedly on our achievements as a sector, especially on access, redress, and equity. I can confidently report that we are increasingly prioritizing intervention policies and strategies that target and improve quality of learning and teaching, and implementing accountability systems to ensure that quality outcomes in the basic education sector are achieved. We are of the strong view that internal efficiencies of the system and quality basic education outcomes will be achieved through specific and deliberate interventions in the early grades. This we are doing because research is showing that the major root causes of dropping out of school towards the end of secondary schooling are weak learning foundations in our early grades. Therefore, the most important priority must be to improve the quality of learning and teaching so that we can ensure improved quality outcomes in the early grades. It is through this pointed focus that learners in the foundation phase can be equipped with the skills needed to cope with the curriculum requirements of the higher grades. So, Chair, we can report with pride that the effects of the interventions in the foundation phase are beginning to result in improved learning outcomes. The skills of our learners are continually improving. The rigorous and widely respected international testing programs are showing this upward swing. Chair and honorable members, progress in the sector has also been confirmed by the recent cycles of regional and international assessment studies. The results of the recent regional international studies, SACMEC and teams, respectively, show that the performance of South African learners is improving, symptomatic to a system of an upward trajectory. SACMEC 4 results confirm the upward trend and show that for the first time, that South African learners at grade 6 achieve mathematical scores which are above the significant center point of 500 points, which we're told by researchers mean that our kids are now at the appropriate level that they're supposed to be, which was not the case in the past. And the team results of 2015 results, on the other hand, further affirmed noteworthy growth patterns, which when compared with other countries since 2003 at grade 9 level, clearly demonstrates that South Africa has shown the largest improvement of 87 points in mathematics and 90 points in science. More importantly, the largest gains were evident within the historically disadvantaged sections of the schooling system, quintiles 1 to 3. So, Chair, during our 2016 budget vote, we did announce that we are reviewing the annual national assessments as our response to general concerns which were leveled against ANA. I can now report the annual national assessment has been reviewed and reconceptualized as the National Integrated Assessment Framework, and the new model comprised 3 tiers: the systematic assessment, diagnostic assessment, and the summative assessment. The systemic assessment will be piloted in October 2017, and the first systemic assessment will be implemented in 2018. Consultations with our social partners are set to be concluded by the end of June 2017 on the diagnostic assessment and the summative assessment. Chair, the improvements that will emanate from the new model of national assessment include, firstly, the use of a single assessment tool, as was in the case of ANA, which was used for a variety of purposes, is now avoided through the 3 separate assessment tools, each with a specific purpose. Secondly, the systemic assessment being administered once every 3 years, it gives the system ample time to remediate before the next assessment. And thirdly, the assessment overload is obviated by the administration of the national assessment in selected grades and not on an annual basis. And fourthly, the diagnostic role of the assessment is emphasized through the provisos of a diagnostic assessment task for use by teachers in the classroom. Speaker, the class of 2016 was the 9th cohort of the learners to sit for National Senior Certificate, and this cohort wrote the national aligned, the road CAPS aligned National Senior Certificate exams. And the class of 2016 did record the highest enrollment in grade 12 learners in the history of our country. So the number of learners who qualified for admissions to bachelor studies, who attained bachelor and higher diploma passes increased, especially in critical subjects. There were also more girls who registered and passed, which gratifies us on the question of parity. And even the number of learners with special needs who entered, wrote, and passed in the 2016 National Senior Certificate examination, some passing with distinctions, it also increased, a sign that our basic education is indeed inclusive. So, honorable members, you may recall that in 2015, we also encouraged provinces to progress or condoned over-age learners who had failed grade 11 more than once. So it's not a pass one, pass all. It was over-age learners who had failed grade 11 more than once. There were other conditions which were attached to this, and extra support was provided to these learners to prepare for exams, meaning that they wrote part of the exam, and some had to modularize the exam. Consequently, in 2016, we saw the largest number of progress learners, and this is in line with what the NDP enjoins us to, and I quote, mediate the high dropout rate of learners from basic education system by increasing the learner retention rate to 90% and allowing for an increase in the number of learners entering vocational and occupational pathways. And the analysis of our 2016 results of progress learners paints an extremely interesting picture, but what is of significance is that there would have been high school dropouts who were progressed, were now afforded an opportunity to either go to university or TVET colleges. Madam Speaker, I wish to refer to different researches which do confirm that our system is on an upward trajectory. The first research report published by UNESCO in 2015 revealed that since the advent of democracy in 1994, more learners remain in school up to grade 12. It's not me, it's UNESCO. In this regard, South Africa does well relative to other middle-income countries such as Tunisia, Egypt, Costa Rica, and Uruguay. Virtually all children remain in school up to the year in which they turn 15 years of age, in line with the compulsory schooling policy embodied in the South African School Act. Further research that was conducted in the department also confirmed that close to 60% of young people were successfully completing 13 years of their schooling. And this figure becomes 56% if only the National Senior Certificate is considered. Comparatively, in 1995, only 39% of young people aged 25 had reported to have completed matric. We should therefore not be surprised to observe from two other research reports that at higher level, The performance, the patterns are encouraging and lend to support to the finding of a system that is on the rise. The research published by Dr. Martin Gustav in 2016 indicate that mathematics, that about 34,000 learners achieve above 60%. By far, most of the improved have been among Black African learners who were the Cinderellas and continue to be Cinderellas of the system. It is moreover important to know that historically Black African schools also account currently to a good number of Black African learners who achieve a mark of 60% or more in mathematics. Township and rural schools are beginning to make an important contribution, and these are in fact the schools which have recently shown the largest improvement. In physical science, for instance, in 2016, this points even a bigger improvement. The number of learners achieving 60% or more in physical science did achieve the highest number since the National Senior Certificate was introduced in 2016. And then the third report also speaks about equity, where we also observe, Chair, that more bachelors are beginning to be harvested from your previously disadvantaged schools. With this evidence, Madam Speaker, Madam Chair, Chair, and honorable members, we are convinced that the overall quality, efficiency, and inclusivity of the basic education system is on the rise. During the current MTF period, we will continue with good work done in the past 3 years, particularly focusing on the performance of the young ones in the foundation phase. Accountability imperatives throughout the entire system are not negotiable. The concerns raised by the National Treasury, the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, the Auditor General's Office, the oversight committees of Parliament, and the public in general will continue to be addressed without failure. Chair, we must equally recognize the cardinal role played by the current 81 basic education districts, because the NDP also states that, I quote, teaching in schools can be improved through targeted support by district officials. So to deliver this injunction, for the past 2 or 3 years, we have convened quarterly meetings with all district directors based on specific themes of the academic year to hold districts accountable in our quest to improve teaching and learning outcomes. And the President has consistently invited all South Africans to join hands and make education a societal issue. We wish to recognize enormous work done by the National Education Collaboration Trust, the NECT, for coordinating valuable contributions made by teacher unions, South African business, universities, research institutions, non-government organizations, and many ordinary South Africans. The NECT has supported the sector greatly by developing, capacitating, and supporting districts in specific management administrative on our core mandates of teaching and learning at school level. So guided by its operational mathematical mantra that NECT plus NDP equals to hope, growth, and the future. In the short stint of the NECT, it has made great impact in the sector. Chair and honorable members, the budget vote for 2014 that we are presenting is marked by a consolidation of our work and on guiding the deepening learning, deepening learning and teaching in the classroom. We continue to confront the persistent challenges within the basic education sector. So today we stand in front of this August House to seek a fresh mandate for a program during the 2017-18 period. The overall budget allocation for 2017-2018 for the Department of Basic Education stands at 23.4 billion. And the fact is that our budget has increased by 1.1 billion in the face of challenging economic times for our country. And Chair, this confirms that ANC-led government's commitment towards education is the topmost priority. So Chair, the breakdown of education program for MTF for this year stands as follows. For administration, we have been allocated 416.3 million, which is an increase of 9.2 million from the previous budget. For curriculum policy support and monitoring, we have been allocated 1.9 million, which is an increase of 7.4 million. On teacher development and human resources and institutional development, we have been allocated 1.2 billion, again an increase of 3.8 percent. On planning and information, the assessment, we have been given 13.2 billion, which is an increase of 6%. And the educational enrichment service is receiving 6.7 billion, which is an increase of 6.9 billion. So, Viva ANC, it's increased all the way. So the allocations, the grant allocations for 2016-2017, for the for the MST, the grant stands at 361 million, which is an increase of less than 1%. On infrastructure, we have been allocated an amount, a city has been funded at 2.5 billion and 2.6 billion respectively. And the education infrastructure grant, which is specifically for use by province, stands at 2.5 billion, and a city stands at 2.6 billion. And again, both grants, 4.5% increase and 9.5% increase respectively. Viva NC. On the National School Nutrition Program, it has been allocated 6.8 billion, an increase of 5.9 million from the 2017 allocation. Currently, the benefits of this program stand at 9 million in more than 21,000 schools. The NDP enjoins us to develop a sense of community ownership for programs such as the National School Nutrition Program. Hence, almost 64,000 volunteers, food handlers continue to prepare meals for our children, while 8,000 SMEs benefit from the program. On learners with profound intellectual disability, Chair, this year the National Treasurer, for the first time, has introduced a grant for profound intellectual disability, which stands at 78 million, which is an increase to 190 million. And the AIDS program has been allocated 245.5 million. So the funds earmarked for Funza Lusaka stand at 1.1 billion, which is an increase of 5%. Umalusi stands at 124.6 million, which is an increase of 6%. Our second chance program, again, Chair, has an allocation of 45 million, which is an increase by 223 million. And the National Education Trust has been allocated 94.2 million, which is an increase of 30.7 for our books, including braille workbooks. They stand at 1.5 billion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll finish when I
Thank you very
close.
much.
But thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let's welcome the children that are in the gallery. And honorable members, let's hope that our guests and the children will have the best experience of a budget debate. Let's offer them the best. The Honorable Gina.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, Minister and Deputy Minister, and all the ministers present and the Deputy Ministers, MECs present here, DG and your senior officials of the department, honorable members, guests, good afternoon. Honorable Chairperson, one statesman in Britain who was Lord Chancellor of England, Henry Peter Brockman, once said, and I quote, "Education makes a people easy to lead, but difficult to drive, easy to govern, but impossible to enslave." It is from this understanding that we must appreciate the education system of our country and treasure it as a national leveler for an ambitious nation that conceives of itself as aspiring to be in the same league as world leading nations of the world. It is an education system that you are working very hard and that it must take our people out of poverty and give them hope for the future. It is from the same context that we must internalize as our own guiding lodestar the assertion that one Chinese philosopher made, I quote again, "If you are planning for a year, sow rice. If you are planning for a decade, plant trees. But if you are planning for a lifetime, educate people," unquote. Our mission One and only is to educate our nation. Ours is to give quality education that prepares an African child to any platform in this world, whether black, white, Indian, or colored. This budget speech is presented in the year that our government has declared as OR Tambo year. There could be no fitting tribute to our doyen struggle than committing ourselves to deliver the best outcome of education to our children and attend to the challenges where they manifest themselves, seeking to backpedal the progress which is being made. OR Tambo as an educationist, a mathematician, whilst a lawyer at the same time. We can draw a leaf and be inspired to unleash the best out of ourselves in emulating OR Tambo. Honorable Chairperson, we participate in this debate today in full understanding of our oversight responsibilities. Parliament is entrusted with informal, formal, watchful, and structured scrutiny over the implementation of policies of government and accompanying budgets. We do this to enhance accountability, transparency, and efficiency, and prudent use of allocated and voted funds. But also, we do this to make sure that our policies and budget, as the African National Congress, achieve what we have promised our people through the 2014 election manifesto, the MTSF, and the NDP. The promises to our people have been the guiding side to what we are kept beholden and steadfast to our cause. We know that ANC manifesto, MTSF, and NDP had pronounced on the mandate the Department of Basic Education had to carry. Ours as the ANC is to assess how far we have gone in improving quality education through improved quality of teaching and learning of our children, eradicating poverty, reducing inequality, improvements in early childhood development, investment in school infrastructure, support for teacher development, access to learner material, effective teacher management, improvements in literacy and numeracy, improved school safety, support to social cohesion, strengthening...
Yes. Just a second. Can we just plead for that continuous noise that is coming from the front desk? We really least expect that from yourself, Honorable Member. Thank you very much. May you proceed.
Okay. Strengthening accountability and monitoring in the system and improve partnership. Honorable House Chair and honorable members, we all know that the terrain has not been good, but with resilience and steadfastness, we can all attest to have worked together to improve quality education of our children. For this in particular, we assert the maxim that says, when the spider's web unite, they can tie a lion. While the journey has been long and daunting, our oversight reveals that the department has not been wavering on its task. Their programs and budgets have been relevant to steer the course of quality education to an African child. Our oversight has revealed that we can have hope to our education system. We here today appropriate 23.4 billion for the Department of Basic Education to continue giving hope to our people. How can we not have hope to the system that has provided millions and millions of workbooks to our learners? How can we not have hope to the system that keeps feeding nutritious meals to over 8 million learners? How can we not have hope to the system that transports over 450,000 learners through learner transport provision? Through Operation Pakisa, driven by the presidency, our learners will soon be technologically ready for the fourth industrial revolution. How can we not have hope to the system that keeps improving our national Senate certificate pass rate? Our committee meetings have looked at the programs, target, and indicators, and we are convinced that the department has prioritized the relevant to its mandate of policy formulation, monitoring, and support. We are also happy that some targets will find expression where they belong within the sector in the provincial departments, in the provincial education department. It is high time that instead of honorable members to play politics, we need to accept the realities of Schedule 4 of our Constitution. Education at all levels, excluding tertiary education, are functional areas of concurrent functions. Further, Provinces are recognized spheres of government in terms of Chapter 3 of the Constitution. We cannot come here and expect the National Department of Basic Education to have indicators that are of provincial competences and budget. But when it suits us, we remind each other of certain governance areas in certain provinces. That is high hypocrisy. We are happy that the department has provided guidance in terms of sector, customized indicators, and those will find expression in the provincial department's APPs. Regardless of the complexities experienced in providing education as a concurrent function, the system shows signs of stability and provides us with more hope. We want to thank the Minister and Deputy Minister for decisive leadership in this complex space. The interventions have gone into the system are clear. The boldness of your leadership to take lead on ACD, especially in the Eastern Cape and Western Cape, bears testimony. Your boldness to intervene through Section 100 in the Eastern Cape and Limpopo shows decisive leadership. On matters of rights of learners to quality education, you did not sit and watch, but proactively led and intervened when necessary, regardless of the constraints of Schedule 4 of the Constitution. We have seen the continued implementation of the ECD, which strengthened the implementation of Grade R policy, National Curriculum Framework for children from birth to 4 years, and the Human Resource Development Plan for Integrated ECD Plan. This gives us hope. We urge the department to prioritize the harmonization of this program in all centers that offer ECD and pay particular attention to the conditions of service of the ECD practitioners. The ANC takes inclusive education serious. Portfolio committee has been undertaking on the NDP goal and objective that says we must provide, I open quote, provide inclusive education that enables everyone to participate effectively in a free society. Education provides knowledge and skills that people with disability can use to exercise a range of other human rights, such as the right to work, the right to live independently and contribute to the community, the right to participate in a cultural life, and the right to raise a family. Ensuring that all children with disability have access to quality education will help South Africa meet its employment equity goal in the long run. We then encourage the department on the following: to continue strengthening curriculum and certification of learners with special needs, not to falter in the progressive rollout of SIA's policy and curriculum differentiation, which has thus reached over 29,000 teachers, resourcing of full-service school, strong monitoring on the gradual increase of a new conditional grant for learners with profound and intellectual disability. And please monitor the admission of learners into these schools to avoid long waiting lists. Our oversight to Pretoria, Honorable House Chair, impressed on us much. We witnessed the total libraries that our government is providing to school. This was never there in our times. The Read to Learn campaign should continue to be supported. Schools are taking the campaign serious. We call on parents who can to really join in and support the campaign. Minister, these are the campaigns that entrench value and hope to our system, and we cannot pretend like we do not see them and their value to an African child. The president of the ANC, on his January 8th statement, indicated that we are proud of the fact that we are making gradual or steady progress in areas such as learner retention. We also accept the honesty of the department in its APP in acknowledging that the sector is still beset with an unacceptably high dropout rate. While the debate vary on the levels of dropout rates in the country, we are pleased that our access to education has reached the required standard in terms of the Millennium Development Goals. But reading from the number of learners enrolling in grade 1 and completing grade 12, one observes that a more thorough research, Honorable Chairperson, needs to be done to ascertain the fall of some learners in their schooling journey. If this is not done, it has a potential of creating an opportunity for misguided conclusions. Also, the president also beseeched the department to continue to making strides in improving the performance in math and science. The strategic objective of the developing and reviewing of mathematics, science, and technology framework to support provinces in improving learner performance in MST subjects is welcome. While appreciate all the targets associated with the improvement of SMT subjects, we request a turnaround in the provision of maths and science teachers. Our oversight in different provinces revealed acute shortage of maths and science teachers. Honorable Chairperson, this will be difficult to realize the turnaround in the provision of maths and science if we do not have enough teachers for these subjects. It is always said that society suffers from a number of social ills, such as crime, violence, and poverty. And indeed, given these ills, the pressure is on teachers to ensure that they produce responsible citizens. The teachers are viewed by many as inspiration, and they carry hopes of millions of our learners. Society hopes that teachers can show learners that their lives and futures can change for the better. Therefore, our recruitment should be spot on to deliver and to recruit on relevant teachers. Honorable Chairperson, let me also thank the collaboration, the teacher union collaboration, and encourage the department that they continue working with this, while thanking that collaboration that the department have with teacher unions. I also want to congratulate our minister for the boldness in instituting the task team on job for sales matter and the cooperation that we have seen our unions, SGB, and all the stakeholders putting in that and we hope and believe that the resolutions thereof are going to be implemented and adhered to by the DBE and all the provinces. Let me take this chance to thank all the portfolio committee members, the support team of the portfolio committee, minister and DM for your continuous stewardship of to the department, DG and all the officials, and also all the honorable members in our portfolio committee for the continuous engagements that sometimes are a little bit brutal, but at the end, we are all aiming for the quality education to be delivered to an African child.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The Honorable Davis.
Thank you, Chairperson. I must say from the outset that it was very disappointing to hear the Minister paint a rosy picture based on selective evidence instead of a frank and honest assessment of our education system. Now, I'm not going to go into the many ways that our education system is failing poor children in our country. Suffice to say that each one of us here, including the Minister, wants a world-class education system for every South African child. But the Minister suffers from the same problem that afflicts every single ANC politician. She is compromised by the internal politics of her party and its alliance partners. She is bound up in a corrupt patronage network that prevents her from doing her job properly. And this is why she lacks courage when dealing with the number one problem in our education system. And the number one problem identified in the ministerial task team, the task team that the Minister set up on the Jobs for Cash scandal, is that trade union bosses from SATU have captured our education system and they are running education in our country and not the government. Now, the Minister knows this very well. She just doesn't have the guts to say it in public. So allow me to report to this House on what the Minister said in her correspondence with the Human Rights Commission on the subject of SATU. And I've got this letter from the Minister that I hold in my hand, and I'm very pleased to see the Human Rights Commission is in the gallery today. In this letter written by Minister Motshekga, she bemoans what she refers to as SATU's, and I quote, hardened attitude to measures to improve education. She accuses SATU of using policy matters as bargaining chips to get its own way. She talks of SATU's antagonistic approach. She says she is disappointed with illegal SATU strikes, boycotts, and stayaways. And she acknowledges her task team's finding that SATU is the culprit in the Jobs for Cash scandal. Now, you will never hear the Minister say these things in this House. And you certainly won't see her taking any action against her alliance partners. She doesn't have the courage. because she needs SATU for her own political survival. Now, we all know that Minister Motshekga is supporting Mr. Ramaphosa to become the president of the ANC. And we saw last week how Mr. Ramaphosa had nothing but praise for SATU when he spoke at their
Order.
Congress. And this is why the ANC cannot self-correct. The ANC cannot self-correct even under a new leadership.
Point of order, House
Order,
Chair.
honorable members. Order, honorable
Point of
members.
order, House Chair.
Can we just make sure that we don't drown the speaker on the podium? Thank you.
Can you please protect our speaker?
Probably that's what I've just done. Proceed.
The uncomfortable truth, Chairperson, is that for as long as the ANC is in power, our education system will remain captured by SATU. So we need to start thinking beyond the ANC, to a new government, under a new president. When a new government, under President Musi Maimane, enters the union buildings, we will bring balance to the education system. We think it is wrong. We think it is wrong that the highest number of teaching days lost due to strikes on the African continent are in South Africa. So we will initiate legislation that regulates teachers' strikes so that no child loses their right to a decent basic education. And instead of weakening school governing bodies, as the minister wants to do, we will strengthen them so that they can help check and balance SATU. We will also implement the recommendations of the Jobs for Cash report, such as stopping the cadre deployment of SATU officials into provincial education departments. And this is something that the minister won't do and an ANC government will not do. We will introduce bold new reforms to improve the quality of teaching, whether SATU likes them or not. We
Point
will
of order,
implement
Chair.
the teacher competency tests
Point of
and the
order,
principal
Chairperson.
performance agreements that have been
Chairperson,
blocked by
point of
SATU
order.
for 5 years.
Order.
Chair,
Just hold on a
the
second.
member is now is irrelevant. He's not debating now. He's talking about the DA manifesto, future dreams.
That's right. That's right.
Okay. Order, honorable members. Order. Order, honorable members. I think that the ANC members that will be coming to speak will talk to that. Thank you very much. Proceed.
Under the next government, teachers who do not have the qualifications to teach, and there are still more than 5,000 of them in our school, teachers with 0 qualifications teaching in our schools, they simply will not be allowed to teach. To bridge the skills gap, we will aggressively headhunt excellent mathematics and science teachers from all over the African continent and from all over the world. And we will bring back teacher training colleges to give teachers the practical skills they need to make a meaningful impact in the classroom. Finally, Honourable Chairperson, we will give parents more choice in their child's education. For example, we are looking at the introduction of a school voucher system. This will give poor parents the financial muscle to take their kids out of schools that don't perform and into schools that do. Now, we know that SATU will not like any of these proposals, but this will not stop us from putting children first. Honourable Chairperson, I want to end off by commending the Minister for one thing, and this is for her Read to Lead campaign to get kids reading in our schools. And I encourage her to take a leaf out of one of the best-loved children's books. In Harry Potter by J.K. Rowling, the great wizard Dumbledore says, "There are all kinds of courage. It takes a great deal of bravery to stand up to our enemies, but just as much to stand up to our friends." Stand up to your friends, Minister. Stand up to SATU. Stand up for the rights of children in South Africa. I thank you.
On that score. Thank you very
To
much.
order.
Order, honorable members. Order, honorable members. Honorable Steenhuisen, is that a point of order?
Point of order in terms of Rule 84 of the rules. The
Yeah.
honourable member over there who's been howling the whole way during the Honourable Davis' speech said, "Futsak Suga." I would submit to you that that is unparliamentary and she should be asked to withdraw it.
Which honorable member are you speaking about? Who's that? Which one? Do you mind identifying? Honorable Steenhuisen? Order, Honorable Steenhuisen. Is it possible to identify the honorable member you refer to?
It's the honourable member sitting in front of the Honourable Björkman.
Honorable member, can you just stand up there? Have you uttered those words?
I've
Foote?
never said that. You must not come up with stories.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Honorable Steenhuisen. Order, Honorable Steenhuisen. We will look at the Hansard and then at the right opportunity will come back. Thank you very much. Order. The Honorable Kauda. Honorable members, I'm still pleading with you. Let us offer our guests the best budget debate possible. Thank you very much. Proceed, Honorable Kaula.
Hey, sabotage. Gibonge sihlalo. Njenge EFF ayi samsana nale budget. Inkinga eyenza ngicela nilalele bakithi asilwe. Sewukaningi sifaka iziphakamiso zethu la eParliament sihlaba indlela yalomnyango oqhubeka ngayo kusukela ngo1994. Namhlanje izinga lemfundo
Just a second. Honorable member, there at the back. There at the back, please, can you just avoid pressing the button there? Because you're disturbing the speaker on the podium. Thank you very much. Proceed.
ngithi si EFF hayi asamsana loluhlelo. Inkinga yakhona ukuthi sekukaningi sifaka iziphakamiso lana phakathi eParliament sihlaba indlela yalomnyango oqhubeka ngayo ikakhulukazi kusukela ngo94 namanje izinga lemfundo yethu isahlukene kabili kukhona eyabacaphuna kusale kukhona eyabadla imbuya ngoti ake ngichaze nje lapha eThekwini sinenkinga kunesikole kuyimanje esixoshe ingane isikole kuthiwa iNew Life Academy ngoba igqoke isiphandla leyanto ikhombisa ukuthi ngo94 asikakakhululeki izikole ezisemaphandleni isemalokishini nasemapulazini nokuyiz
Just a second, madam. Just a second. Honorable members, let us not heckle continuously to an extent that we can't hear the speaker on the podium. Please, let's lower our voices down. Let us not heckle continuously because we can't hear the speaker on the podium. I still do plead, let us try and maintain some decorum in the House and offer the best debate to our guests. Thank you very much. Proceed, Honorable Kaula.
ngibonga mhlonishwa okubhlungu lana izolo besikhuluma ngamasiko namhlanje sizokhuluma ngokuthi kunezikole ezisaxosha izingane ezigqoke iziphandle esikoleni angazi ngempela ukuthi yini sikwazi ukuthi sikhulume ngamalungelo other side sesiyaphikisana lilonke emakhaya masikhuluma ngemfundo siyazi ukuthi iningi lethu thina abantu besifazane izingane zethu zifundiswa yithina kanzima singomama bangasenabo abayeni kodwa kuyimanje khona imali lesibonelelo sika government ayikhipha ukuthi abantwana bakwazi ukuthi baphile Kodwa kugcina le mali umzali ngenxa ukuthi ufuna izingane zethu ifunde. Kuze kugcine siba nenkinga la yokuthi ekugcineni izingane zethu kuthathwa le mali engabe iphakelwa ukudla ngayo iyokhokhela i-transport. Le ndaba ye-transport yey'kole ngifuna ukwazi ukuthi ihamba ibhekephi ngoba ikhona ukuthi iy'ngane kwezinye indawo ziyayithola i-transport ukuthi zikhokhelwe u-government i-transport. Kwezinye indawo siyabona amabhayisekeli angazi noma kukhetha nini noba nu-ANC yini. Uma ungabheka imiphumela yabantu yakamuva eminyakeni emithathu eyedlule, izinga lokuphumelela kwabafundi bakamatekuletsheni lehle lisuka ku7.3% laya ku61.6% ngaleso sikhathi elasesikoleni zobacaphuna imbuya ngezi bona baku 91% naku 92%. Sisaqhubeka namanje sisasho ukuthi umnyango wezemfundo eyisisekelo awukakwenzi okwanele ukwehlisa izinga labafundi abalaxaza izikole bengaqedile nakomatekuletsheni. Lenkinga isazoqhubeka isikhathi eside uma umnyango uqhubeka ungalosukumeli lokulekelela labantwana abasuke bengaqedanga ezikoleni. Lokhu ke ngqongqoshe kusho ukuthi izingane zabacaphuna kusale zisazoqhubeka zithole imfundo esezingeni eliphezulu zona. Kodwa ngalesi sikhathi ezabadla imbuya ngothi zisazoqhubeka zingatholi ukufunda ngendlela efanele. Iminyaka ewu-23 kuseney'kole ezingenawo ama-toilet endwethe Ward 19. Iy'ngane zakhona ama-toilet amayingena zinama-foot step. E-Eastern Cape iy'kole zakhona iy'ngane zakhona zisewudaka ezinye zifundela ngaphansi kwesihlahla. Lento ibuhlungu ngoba u-23 years ayona into yokudlala. Siubekile u-2019 lapho i-EFF khona ezophatha nizolibona ushintsho. Asizukudlala thina ngabantu bakithi abanhlwempu ngoba kusasa niyosho ukuthi yini eniyenzela abantu bakithi.
Asibonge mama.
Eniyangxola.
Asibonge honorable member. Thank you very much. The Honorable Singh.
Thank you, Chair. I will start when the people on the, okay, they're quiet now. Honorable Chairperson, my time starts now. The Honorable Msimang is a permanent member of this portfolio committee, and I will share some thoughts on his behalf and on behalf of the Inkatha Freedom Party. Honorable Chairperson, our national senior certificate results since 2014 have been a stark reminder that all is not well in the basic education sector. Causes for the poor performance of the grade 12 candidates during the said period are many and varied. Some originate from within the department and others from within sister departments in partnership with basic education. And let me refer to some of these sister departments. Here one must make mention of the Department of Public Works, which builds and repairs school buildings. It is quite concerning that even at present and 23 years after democracy, there are still learners who study in mud schools and some under trees. Schools damaged by wind and rainstorms take years before they are repaired, and I think this is a disgrace. A case in point is the Ntabazulu School and Gochiabeni in the district of Aduchwa in the Eastern Cape. Many schools in the Eastern Cape are rationalized and merged, and whilst we welcome the benefit learners enjoy with the increased number of educators, merging ends up creating new challenges. Learners find themselves traveling long distances, which Honorable Kaula has referred to, and crossing rivers they did not need to cross before. This then behoves the Department of Transport, another sister department, to intervene and build roads and bridges to make schools easily accessible by school transport. Since this department often fails to intervene timeously, the learners find themselves resorting to vans, which are banned by the Department of Basic Education from transporting learners, as these in the past have led to fatal accidents. We do know that there are some regulations in place banning them, but this still does not take away the hardships that learners have to face. Honorable Chairperson, other departments which are crucial to the delivery of quality education are communications and energy, with their entities Telcom and Eskom. These are essential in the delivery of internet and communications and the electrification of schools. Whilst in the urban areas, almost all schools have electricity, in our rural areas, electrification is still lagging behind. This leads to a two-stream education system. On the one hand, learners in the rural schools are still subject to outdated modes of learning, whereas in the urban areas, learners are exposed to e-learning methods, where the use of ICT is the norm. Since ICT is the modern way of communication throughout the world, learners from rural areas remain terribly disadvantaged, and all of us can share experiences with you. In respect of concerns with basic education, I will only mention the lack of sufficient qualified teachers in the field of science and mathematics. On the previous oversight visit to Gauteng, Honorable Msimang went there on basic education. The MEC on education, seated behind me, and he does very well in his province, informed the committee that the reason why his province came second to Free State in the Senior Certificate 2016 was the poor performance of his candidates in science and mathematics.
You have 1 minute left, Honourable Member.
This deprived many of his candidates degree-accessible passes. The department must address this lack, as these two subjects are fundamental to any good education. Honorable Chairperson, the IFP supports this budget vote in the further hope, and Honorable Glina had hope, in the further hope that quality education and quality infrastructure is made available to all learners in South Africa, both rural and urban areas. This is a dream we should all jointly strive for. But having said that, Honorable Chairperson, all is not gloom and doom in the rural areas, because there are many shining examples of excellence.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Your time has expired.
Thank you.
I now call Honourable N.M. Kubisa.
Chairperson, thank you very much, Honourable Minister, Deputy Minister and Ministers, Deputy Ministers present, Honourable members, our guests in the gallery. The National Freedom Party believes that education is important. Hence, Minister, we support this budget. We welcome the department's budget allocation of 23.4 billion for this financial year, which represents a 5.1% increase on the 22.3 billion during the 2016-2017 financial year. Equally, we welcome the spending projection across the 5 programs and are encouraged that the bulk of the budget is earmarked for Program 4, which contains the school infrastructure program. We urge the department to prioritize infrastructure development for rural schools, which are in dire need and are often last in line for assistance and development. We still have mud schools. We still have children getting education while sitting under the trees. We have to eliminate bucket toilets. In rural areas in particular, we have schools without laboratories and libraries. We still need to lure science and maths educators to come to rural areas and have a way of giving them incentives so that they could be willing to teach in rural areas. And we still have to provide some web boxes. And Chairperson, I understand that the Honorable visit Kamakwaza Msebi around Zululand provided about schools for about 200 boxes for schools around Ulundi, so that our children will be exposed to ICT, which is very important. We note that a new focus for the department over the medium term is the second chance matric program, which is intended to give learners an opportunity to rewrite the National Senior Certificate Examination. The National Freedom Party welcomes this prioritization, which we believe is of crucial importance. Too many of our young people who are victims of substandard education face a bleak future with very little or no employment prospects. And this program holds out a ray of hope that we may yet avert having a lost generation to account for our future generations. The National Freedom Party agrees with observation and recommendation contained in the report. In general, Chairperson, we believe that certain issues warrant close attention, notably the scourge of politicization of our education and fraud, particularly qualification fraud, which seems to be increasing in this department. We need to address the lack of culture, the culture of teaching and learning. And Minister, we say, if our education has got weak basis, we'll have weak results at the end of the day. Hence, grade R education and all other grades are very important. And we believe also, Chairperson, that we deal with transport and security in our schools. And as the NFPS having said that, we support this budget. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I now call the Honourable, the Deputy Minister of Basic Education.
Thank you. Honourable Chairperson, Honourable Minister, esteemed and honourable members. In December last year, we celebrated 20 years of the proclamation of our Constitution, which is the supreme law of our land. I was very fortunate and indeed honoured to be part of an extraordinary venture, putting together a book encapsulating the diverse perspectives of different negotiators from different political parties. And this book is titled Reflections on the Bill of Rights. It's obtainable from Parliament. The book itself sought to capture the essence and values enshrined in our Bill of Rights, which is indeed the cornerstone of our democracy. Our President and Deputy President provided the foreword and a chapter respectively in the book. In the foreword, the President, Jacob Zuma, states, and I quote, "The Bill of Rights is described in the preamble as the cornerstone of our democracy. It is underpinned by the values of human dignity, equality, and freedom. The choice of these values was a conscious and deliberate effort given our divided past, when the vast majority of our people, blacks in general, and Africans in particular, had their dignity violated in multiple ways on a daily basis." Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa, who was the chairperson of the Constitutional Assembly at the time, and who dubbed this constitution as the birth certificate of our democratic nation, reflected in the values and rights enshrined in the Bill of Rights. He correctly stated that, and I quote, "The liberation struggle was a struggle for human dignity and human rights, and the affirmation, recognition, and protection of each South African's human dignity. It was also about achieving equality for the masses of our people and ensuring the enjoyment and full civil, political, social, and economic rights of our people." And I close quote. He reminds us that President Nelson Mandela, the first president of a democratic South Africa, precisely 23 years ago from today, while addressing the two houses of Parliament, had the following to state, and I quote, "Our definition of freedom of the individual must be instructed by the fundamental objective to restore the human dignity of each and every South African. This requires that we speak not only of political freedoms. My government's commitment to create a people-centered society of liberty binds us to the pursuit of the goals of freedom from want, freedom from hunger, freedom from deprivation, freedom from ignorance, freedom from suppression, and freedom from fear. These freedoms are fundamental to the guarantee of human dignity," unquote. Now, this book also significantly reflects on a chapter by Louise Asmal, the wife of the late Kader Asmal, and in which she states that the genesis of the Constitution can be traced to the instruction of O.R. Tambo, whose birth we celebrate this year in the African Month. And we do so, and in that chapter, she indicates that O.R. Tambo had instructed, long before the release of Nelson Mandela, that Kader Asmal, Zola Skweyiya, L.B. Sachs, and a few others would get together and prepare the first draft of a constitution. And it's important that we recognize that we have moved a long way since then. Now, the constitution, as he requested, should be informed by the African Claims Document, the Freedom Charter, and the African Charter of Rights and Obligations. This commitment here and this request is then enshrined in the right to basic right in education. We were confronted in our democratic disposition. You know, they say a fool must speak because a wise man speaks because he has something to say. A fool speaks because he must say something. And that is the difference. And that is what education is all about. Basically, this is the question. Now you're going to have this continuous interruption out here in order to distract me to convey a message. And the difficulty with the DA is not what it says, it's what it does not say. It does not say that it had failed to deliver in Atlantis any school, and that the National Department and ANC-led government had delivered schools to them. It does not say in Danone, which is overcrowded, the people had to wait for more than 20 years for a school, and this national department, this African National Congress-led department has indeed provided the infrastructure that the community desperately needs. It does not say, and it's an attempt to create a social and cohesive society. The DA has only had 1.5% of its schools teach their children an African indigenous language because they are a polarized society that they only think of perpetuating the past and the privilege of the past. It does not say that this African National Congress government contributes on a daily basis to 9.3 million people who are fed. It does not say that several years ago, when the Department of Water Affairs told the municipality in Cape Town that you are going to have a drought, they said, no, it's not going to happen. And as a result, failed to make the interventions. It does not say that it has been the recipient of 25 state-of-the-art schools that was provided to this community. It is unfortunate that you are obsessed.
Order, honourable members, you are drowning the speaker.
It is unfortunate that you are obsessed with the South African Democratic, and that is clearly what the Honourable Davis did. He did not speak about education. He did not speak about the quality of education. What did he speak about? He spoke about SATU. What did he speak about? He spoke about strikes. Now, he does not take this House into his confidence that there has been no strike at all in this current administration. He does not take into confidence that those SATU teachers teaching the schools in the Free State, who for the first time were able to achieve more than 90%, which the Western Cape never did. These were SATU organizers. He does not say that these SATU teachers teach in overcrowded schools. He does not say that no single white teacher goes to a township or a rural area to go and teach out there because they perpetuate white privilege, because they accumulate wealth and seek to benefit only the privileged few. He does not say that, because what is his compulsive obsession? It's about SATU. Yes, there are individuals that may be within SATU who are basically causing mayhem, but the organization itself has worked together with us. The reality is that the Western Cape cannot accept that the Free State has done better than it. The reality is that the Western Cape cannot accept that it has been trounced by the Free State more than once, and the Northwest more than once.
Deputy
it does not
Minister.
say that notwithstanding the privilege of the past, it has failed to succeed. And that is the difficulty with the DA. Honorable Chairperson, I now will not be distracted any further. We have to share with this particular House the importance. Shame. We have to share with this particular House the importance of providing the dignity of learning in an environment that is conducive to learning. This ANC-led government has contributed 179 state-of-the-art schools. In the Eastern Cape alone, Mekaula, we have contributed more than 120 state-of-the-art schools. These schools have libraries, laboratories, they have ICT facilities, they have sports amenities. In the Western Cape, you have been the recipient of 22 schools, and within the next 6 weeks, there are going to be 3 more schools in the historically disadvantaged areas where your government failed to deliver at all in the past 12 years. That is the reality. What we should hear from Mr. Honorable Davis and what we do not hear from the Honorable Davis is the reality that provincial departments have contributed more than 740 schools, more than, and I repeat, 740 schools to our people since 2010. What you have not sold this House, and what you failed to do so, and that's part of your narrative of concealing the positive contribution that has been made, is the reality that 60 million books are delivered to every single child, black and white, privileged or not privileged, in this particular system. And these are to promote literacy and numeracy. That is the reality, that is the change that we speak about, that is the condition that we seek to bring about in order to provide quality education. What we do not hear from the DA, is that the quintile 1, 2, and 3, the no-fee schools, contribute more distinctions than the quintile 4 and 5 schools, that the bridge in terms of quality is becoming narrow and narrower, notwithstanding the socio-economic conditions. It is unfortunate that the Honorable Davis and the DA seek to politicize an important issue such as education. That is indeed the reality. But what is the challenge then that we face in the 21st century? We are indeed on the in the cusp of the 4th Industrial Revolution. That means that we have to recognize the value of ICT in the education environment. That means that we should do what the Honorable MEC from Gauteng and the Honorable MEC from the Western Cape is doing, to pay particular attention to ICT as an empowering instrument to enhance learning and teaching. It means that the learning environment has changed, that there is a dynamic environment which is changing so rapidly that you require extraordinary skills from educators who are able to facilitate learning and teaching. It means that we should pay particular attention to the new methodology of teaching, to the new pedagogics of teaching. It means that the task of teaching in this rapidly changing environment is indeed a difficult one.
Your time,
and for this reason, we've
Honourable
established
Deputy Minister.
147 teacher resource centers countrywide
Your time
in order
has expired,
to
Deputy
sustain.
Minister.
Shame, you don't want to hear the truth. Is it so hurtful? Is it so hurtful that you do not want to hear it?
Thank you,
That
thank
is-
you,
that
thank
is
you
shame.
very much, Deputy.
It's my time expired.
Your
Honourable
time has
Chairperson.
expired. Thank you.
May I
Deputy.
thank the Minister, the DG, and everybody else, and the poor opposition who cannot swallow the truth.
Thank you, Honourable Minister, Deputy Minister. I now, Honourable Members, upon agreement, we're going to call Honourable Carter now. She has been swapped with Honourable Majeke. Honourable Carter, your time.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, from the commencement of our democratic South Africa, education was rightly seen as key in ensuring the reconstruction and development of South Africa, of addressing poverty and gross inequality, of fundamentally transforming South Africa and creating a more just and prosperous society. The RDP White Paper put it that developing the human resources of a country is both a goal of the RDP and a requirement for achieving other RDP goals. Substitute RDP with NDP, and I'm sure the message remains the same. Now, according to the Institute of Race Relations, the bad performance of our schools condemn more than half of our children to a future of unemployment and welfare dependence, that the lower the level of education attained, the more likely adults are to be poor and experience more intense levels of poverty. If we are to break the cycle of poverty and inequality, we need to grow the middle class, and education is the primary predictor of whether or not a child will attain a middle class standard of living. The abject failure of our basic education system is starkly put in a report conducted by the University of Stellenbosch, which noted that If primary school teachers are unable to teach literacy and basic numeracy to their students, there's little point in attempting any of the other subjects, and yet it has become as clear as day that the majority of South African teachers are unable to wield either of these skills effectively in the classroom. The fact of the matter is that only half of those entering the system progress to matric, and that the real attrition happens between grades 10 and 12. That very few who remain past math and science, and that we spend more on education as a percentage of GDP, amongst others Spain, Poland, and Indonesia, yet our outcomes lag far behind emerging markets. This is a correlation between the views of the IRR and the study conducted by the University of Stellenbosch. The report points to 4 binding constraints to an improved educational outcome for the poor, and these are weak institutional functionality, undue union influence, weak teacher content knowledge and teaching skill, wasted learning time and insufficient opportunity to learn. One can't help but conclude that the nexus of problems besetting basic education are primarily political. ANC alliance, particularly in the relationship between the ANC and SARTU. The Jobs for Cash reports notes that all Deputy Director Generals in the Department of Basic Education are SARTU members and attend meetings of that union. That being the case, it is not improper to say that schooling throughout South Africa is run by SARTU and not by you, Minister. But the deployment of officials to the department from unions weakens the department because those so deployed often struggle to demonstrate that they are able to balance the complexity of competing loyalties and demands. If undue influence,
You have a
that's
minute
polite
left, Honourable
name
Member.
for corruption. Thank you, Chair. If undue influence, a very polite name for corruption, is a result of cadre deployment, then cadre deployment is likely to lead to corruption. It was the impression of a task team that corruption is endemic in the entire education system, and that as a first move to cleanse the system, cadre deployment should not be permitted. And that the Department of Education endeavoured to regain control of administering the education system in all provinces, so that clear distinction can be established between the roles and the functions of a Department of Basic Education and the concerns of SARTU. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I now call Honourable A.D. Alberts.
Thank you, Chairperson. Minister, addressing you every year seems like deja vu. Every time the very same issues emerge, and every year we try to provide some advice. Despite this, the parlous state of basic education is not getting any better in this country. This country still faces the cliff of climbing back from the depth of being the poorest achiever, if one can use that word, in mathematics and science, the 2 most important subjects to adequately compete in the modern local and international economy. Our youth is being deprived of a decent future, and they are destined to become mere cannon fodder for populist politicians, a process that has already unfortunately started. Our abundance of young people could be a demographic dividend to us to spur economic growth, as opposed to the developed states where workers are actually growing old. Or they can become victims of populist leaders that will promise utopia but create another Zimbabwe. Minister, ons het gevind dat baie van die probleme by die provinsiale LEK's lê, wat nie u sentimente noodwendig deel nie. U het voorheen in reaksie op vorige begrotingsdebatte die volgende sterk standpunte ingeneem. U het voorheen in debatte gesê, eerstens dat u geen probleem met Afrikaanse skole het nie, dat moedertaalonderrig wel belangrik is, en dat meer skole gebou moet word, en ons stem saam met u daar. We want to believe that you are still committed to these positions, for we need more schools to be built where people actually live, and most of those schools must make provision for instruction in official languages other than English. Unfortunately, your provincial colleagues do not seem to agree with you. Ons vind dat die oprig van skole in baie provinsies soos Gauteng nie 'n prioriteit is nie. Die ironie is dat terwyl daar selfs bestaande leerskoolgeboue oral staan, veral in Gauteng, word Afrikaanse skole deur die LER van Gauteng gedwing om anderstalige leerlinge in te neem. Uiteindelik verdwyn daardie Afrikaanse skole heeltemal. Wanneer hierdie soort optrede plaasvind, weet mens dat dit met politieke motiewe gebeur en niks te maak het met die skep van regverdige geleenthede vir alle
Round up,
leerlinge
honourable
nie.
member.
L.E.R. Lesofie is so gestel daarop om wit mense as rasiste uit te beeld, dat hy selfs 'n kleuterskool intimideer, terwyl en sy ondersteuners per Twitter oproep om aan massa daaraan deel te neem, terwyl die sogenaamde diskriminasie wat sou plaasgevind het bloot vals nuus is. Hierdie gretigheid tot skuldverklaring van wit mense in plaas daarvan om skole te bou en bestaande leergeboue te gebruik, is duidelik deel van 'n plan om minderhede te demoniseer. Ander minderhede soos die Afrikaanse breingemeenskap is ook baie bekommerd. In Davidson wil word Engelssprekende hoof by 'n brein-Afrikaanse skool aangestel
Your
met
time is
gewelddadige
now
gevolge.
expired, honourable member.
Die breingemeenskap se geduld is ook op, minister, en ons vra u om u weer te verbind tot Afrikaans in skole, moedertaalonderrig en nuwe
Thank you,
skole te
honourable
bou.
member.
Baie dankie.
The next speaker is Honourable C.N. Majeke.
Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, the United Democratic Movement supports the budget vote number 14. Yes. Basic education requires the centrality of the role of community in defining and shaping our content and system of education. This is one of the pillars of the Education Charter campaign, and it is our view as United Democratic Movement that we need to go back to those basics. Education is one of the public goods, and therefore it must not only be valued by the community, but must be advanced, protected, and preserved. A community that values education will claim ownership of its processes and the infrastructure. Accordingly, communities must be given responsibility and sufficient space to define and shape the nature and content of the system itself. It is through education that the nation can be reconciled, reconstructed, and developed. It is through education that the realization of the full potential of a child and the nation is enhanced. The concept of people is power. Means engaging local leaders and people in broad-based community education forums, and to ensure that all resources are pulled together with strengths and skills as well as knowledge in pursuit of a qualitative education. Well-organized communities are better positioned to generate and emerge with alternative policies and plans for consideration by government and school governing bodies. This may ultimately shape the nature and content of the knowledge designed for the development of young boys and girls. Accordingly, in supporting the budget, we suggest that the department should give priority to the critical role that communities should be enabled to play in making our basic education a qualitative tool for socio-economic development. We also support this budget in order to encourage the department to make sure that the collapsing scholar transport system in the Eastern Cape is addressed before many young boys and girls fail to attend school due to the poor planning
You
and
have a minute
budgeting
left,
of
honourable
the
member.
relevant provincial department. This year alone, we have already lost countless young innocent souls due to reasons that are related to poorly organized and managed scholar transport across the country. In this regard, the UDM suggests that an urgent and comprehensive review of scholar transport system should be conducted. In doing so, the department must place communities at the center of planning and execution of a better, effective, and efficient system. It cannot be that when our children leave home to seek education, they end up in mortuaries and in hospitals. The feeding scheme is also engulfed with serious challenges that reflect weakness at the level of interdepartmental collaboration and cooperation. Chairperson, in conclusion, once again, only when the communities own these processes that they can be delivered successfully, efficiently, and effectively. We therefore call on the department to make this budget a budget that will put the communities first and the center at the center of the delivery of a qualitative basic education. Once again, we support the budget. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. And now, the next speaker is Honourable N.R. Makoto.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable House Chairperson, Minister of Basic Education, Deputy Minister, Ministers present, honorable members, the DG and his cohort from the department, honorable members, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I greet you all and wish you well as we continue.
Honourable Makoto, just a moment. What is the point of order, Honourable Member?
Ngiyabonga sihlalo lapho ngaphambili. Hayibo nansi imkhuba yenzeka lana. Unoma Rasha ukhona la? Mayikhona ubani?
No, Honourable
Ufike
Member.
nini?
No, Honourable Member, that's not the point of order.
No,
Please,
yona
take a
ngifuna
seat.
ulungise kulo ndawo.
Thank you, Honourable Member. You may continue, Honourable Makoto. Sorry, continue, Honourable Member.
Thank you, Chairperson. That is local content that Hlaudu Mutsweni was talking about. Chairperson, I greet you all and wish you well as we continue to commemorate the year of our revolutionary and selfless veteran and forebear, Comrade Oliver Tambo. And in the midst of a period marking the reawakening of our continent, Africa, and commemorating the formation of the OAU, now the African Union. We do this with the theme, restoring the dignity of learners through the provision of decent infrastructure to advance quality education. Coupled with that, Chairperson, we wish to pay tribute to all the young women, emphasizing on what the Minister has already highlighted. The young women, wives, sisters, aunts, mothers, and grandmothers of our nation. We salute you. We want to raise this important matter, which continue to face and threaten our sisterhood. And in some instances, they had to succumb to their lives to senseless, violent, and inhumane abuse, kidnappings, and death at the hands of their supposed loved ones and partners. We further call on the menfolk to man up. We appreciate the efforts that were taken by a group of men in Pretoria who stood up to say that they are against women abuse and women killings, and that it should not happen in their name. We need the menfolk to stand up and join us to end the scourge of violence that is targeting our women. We say enough is enough and we must stop violence against women. A learned professor once said, Chairperson, that to destroy a nation, one does not need to use nuclear bombs or weapons of mass destruction. It only requires the lowering of standards of education and allowing learners to plagiarize, copy, and restricting access to educational resources. And that is exactly what the apartheid government sought to do through the Bantu education system, which excluded black learners and rendered education a privilege, not a fundamental human right. Chairperson, one of the most predominant apartheid legacies which the newly formed democratic government of South Africa had to deal with was that of eradicating unsafe infrastructure and lack of basic services to the majority of the people of South Africa. We definitely come a long way when it comes to the provision of school infrastructure. From the eradication of improper and unsafe infrastructure in schools to the building of flushing toilets, classrooms, science and ICT labs, school kitchens, libraries, sports areas and grounds, building security fences, providing electricity, availing clean and safe water, including providing decent sanitation, have been made a top priority for our government. Through these meaningful efforts, the ANC-led government has made it possible for all the ideals and rights spelled in our constitution to be a living reality. 20 years ago, before the dawn of democracy in South Africa, many learners had to attend school and learn under trees. They had to use bushes as toilets and had no water to drink and even wash their hands. They had to face up to the reality that they might not finish school, thanks to a system that they had no control over. Bantu education, it never gave anyone a choice, something which Honorable Davis has stated that they are going to give. That is why many black learners in 1976, they had to die, sacrifice their lives in order to ensure that they reassert their right to choose a better education, their right to choose better facilities, the language of their choice, and all the necessary necessities for decent education. It's restored. Their future for them was bleak. It was just a dream that might never be realized. Today, our constitution and our country's educational laws and policies make it compulsory for learners to access basic education and providing all the needed educational resources like textbooks, workbooks, learner transport, and all the other facilities.
You have a minute left, Honourable Member.
President Jacob Zuma, in his State of the Nation address, identified education as a top priority. Through that, we have seen an increase in infrastructure development, particularly provision of school infrastructure. Even the budget allocated has grown significantly. We have seen the growth and improvement in the expenditure patterns in provinces in terms of reducing infrastructure backlogs. Many schools were built new and damaged ones and old ones have been renovated. Additional classrooms have been erected. About 1,145 additional schools were provided with clean and safe water. 939 more schools were provided decent sanitation. Honorable Chairperson, through the ACD program, we have seen the Department of Basic Education provide one school per week. And we want to say that we support the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable C. Dudley.
Thank you, Chair. United Nations data indicates that South Africa allocates a higher proportion of its budget toward education than the United States, the UK, and Germany. Not only does this show a clear commitment to investing in human development in our country, it also makes sense considering that education for the vast majority of people in South Africa has been historically entirely inadequate and anything but prioritized. The ACDP 100% supports the prioritizing of education in order to ensure greater opportunities for every child in South Africa and to sustainably tackle inequality and poverty. We're also encouraged by the Minister's stand against community protests being allowed to disrupt schooling and disadvantaged learners. But now we encourage you, Honourable Minister, to follow through with regard to union activity that undermines education in this country and the enormous efforts that your department is making. Basic education in South Africa has been allocated 752 billion rand over the next 3 years, and although South Africa's national school pass rate has improved, the public school system is still struggling. Some would have us believe that more public-private partnerships would turn the situation around. And while the ACDP would welcome a focus on public-private partnerships, we are aware that of the controversial nature of these arrangements. Many argue that public-private partnerships in fee-free schools would provide flexibility, greater efficiency, increased accountability to government and parents, and deliver improved teaching and learning because of much-needed extra resources. But sadly, there seems to be no conclusive evidence that PPPs are performing better than their public counterparts. In fact, more money per pupil tends to be paid for administration and management costs, and less money per pupil tends to be paid on teaching and learning in both for-profit and non-profit schools, with teacher salaries being kept low by relying on younger, less experienced staff. By contrast, of course, the largest part of South Africa's education budget, divided through equitable share to the country's 9 provinces, goes to salaries. While so much that determines a child's school performance is linked to the home and not to the classroom, there's still a growing consensus that South Africa's poorest performing schools are underfunded. So it seems we have a catch-22 situation where our overburdened budget would make us look in the direction of NGOs and private operators, yet the experience of other countries shows a real risk of making the country's public education funds vulnerable to capture by private interests. The ACDP does call, however, on the department to apply their minds to how the benefits of public-private partnerships can be harnessed without making the public funds vulnerable to agendas and profit-making at the expense of learners, en route to quality education for all. The ACDP welcomes the review by National Treasury of spending and implementation of scholar transport and schools infrastructure, and the exploring of options that allow for ring-fencing of funds allocated for these purposes. The ACDP also recognizes work done by the department in ensuring access to early childhood development centers across the country. We call on the minister, however, to ensure ECD practitioners have access to the skills they need for these centers to be successful. And the ACDP has decided to support this budget on which so much depends. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Dudley. I now call the Honorable H.S. Boshoff.
Honorable Chair, standing here today, I can confirm that over 500,000 children with disabilities are not in schools. These children are being denied their right to basic education, as virtually no special needs schools, where most children with disabilities are erroneously sent, are not fee-free schools. Children with disabilities are also forced to shoulder additional costs, and fees in special schools typically differ, as there are no set tariffs. Location is another problem. Many special needs schools are located in urban areas with little or no boarding facilities. Where boarding facilities are available, we find waiting lists of up to 200 learners per year. If a child with disabilities is accommodated, staff are not always adequately trained. This is why so many of our learners with disabilities do not attend school. Absence of personal wealth should never be a barrier to education, because no child should be denied their right to learn because of poverty. The new grant minister for learners with profound intellectual disabilities is definitely a step in the right direction for the sector, but does not address many of the problems. Special need programs suffer from a lack of qualified educators and specialized learning materials. Just one example is a severe lack of Braille books. Physically disabled, blind and deaf learners who do not have any cognitive disabilities can, with proper education, enter the labor market at the end of their matric year or further their studies and achieve great things, like the founder of Motswako Office Systems, Sebenzile Matsibulu, or the former Justice of the Constitutional Court, Zak Yaqub. Yet, these learners sit at home or are sent to daycare centers where mothers of those communities assist in providing care whilst the parents are at work.
Minute left, Honourable Member.
Does the ANC government not think these children are worth the investment? The DA is, however, committed to allowing parents to make the best choices for their child with special education programs, both in mainstream schools and in special needs schools. In the Western Cape, where we govern, the government has worked tirelessly to improve access to specialized support in townships and rural areas through multidisciplinary teams and well-trained educators. In the 2017-18 Western Cape education budget, over 1.2 billion is allocated to special needs education. It is, Chair, absolutely amazing what can be achieved when a governing party focuses on its mandate to support its citizens instead of dreaming up new schemes to defraud the public. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I now call on the Honourable J.V. Basson.
Honorable House Chair, distinguished guests on the gallery, and the House at large, I greet you all. My men's and Noordkap, goeiemiddag. Entsimeko nekhaya molweni mawethu. House Chair, indeed, I would like to indicate that the ANC support the budget vote 14. Supporting the budget, my point of emphasis, House Chair, is on progress made in addressing the social challenges through the implementation of the pro-poor programs in advancing quality education for all, realizing the mandate of the NDP, of course. A lot has been done by ANC-led government in a short period of time, given the vastness of challenges that the previous system of apartheid inflicted upon our majority people. Thus, since 1994, the ANC-led government committed itself through the task of social transformation, now declared by His Excellency President Zuma in his State of the Nation address, that is online with radical economic transformation, which we believe our people are yearning for. The social challenges experienced by millions of our people who were deliberately excluded from quality education by the system that was to make our people to be slaves from generation to other generation. House Chair, the social challenges I'm referring to are, amongst others, have found root from colonial system and have created bad, rotten fruits in our society. Whereas poor education for a specific group marked by hungry learners expected to concentrate in class, learners dropping out due to their parents' inability to pay fees, high level of teenage pregnancy, bullying, alcohol, drug, and substance abuse, now killings of educators in schools, lack of health support programs, service delivery protests depriving learners access to education, learners having to walk long distances because of the lack of transport. Those
Point
are
of
the
order,
legacy
Chairperson.
of apartheid.
Point of order.
As
Chairperson.
per Freedom Charter, I quote,
Honourable Basson, what is the point? What
Listen,
point are you raising on, Honourable Member?
79. The member in the front there, she is, you read it, she is sleeping and she's disrupting this house the whole session, Honourable Chairperson.
That's not a point of order. Continue, Honourable Basson.
Thank you, Chairperson. As per Freedom Charter, I quote, doors of learning shall be open to all. The ANC-led government noted these things and put in place systems aimed at addressing the freeing of people socially and economically. The reality is that these challenges are massive and need a lot of resources to address. 360 years of damage cannot be addressed in a short period of time. 20 years is nothing. In the lendlela mawethu masingadinwa verkramtes sal bly verkramtes. Despite those enormous challenges, much has been done. Sorry.
1 minuut oor.
Let me just highlight the important points that the department has done. The National School Nutrition, Scholar Transport, Inclusive Education, Health and Well-being of learners, free education. And as I say, this, to conclude this speech, House Chair, those who claim not to see work and progress done so far by ANC.
Order, Honourable Member. There's no Scholar Patrol here.
Tina, ayifuni thina leyo. Abazimfama bazawuhlala bezimfama. ANC lives and ANC delivers. We are indeed moving South Africa forward. When asuka phambi kwethu thina siyaqhuba. Once more, we support the party.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I now call the Honourable L.M. Chaser. Not here. The Honourable Chaser is not here. No. Then I move to the Honourable N.I. Tarabella Mashe.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to dedicate this speech to the 18 learners who tragically lost their lives in a minibus taxi accident in Brokenspruit in April this year. As we say, njengamaXhosa, lalani ngoxolo, akuhlanga kungahlanga. Chairperson, many children in this country are forced to travel vast distances to get to school. Like the learners at Chief Ngonyama Technical School in Ilembe District, KwaZulu-Natal, which we visited at the beginning of the year, who walk up to 10 kilometers a day to gain access to a basic education. This is injustice. Chairperson, we need to speak honestly about providing education infrastructure in both rural and township areas. On Monday, I visited Vuwane in Limpopo a full year after 28 schools that were burned down to the ground during the protest action. As I visited school after school, I quickly realized the department has sent contractors and architects to assess the damage, but then disappeared into thin air. The marble classrooms are still there, and buildings are not being mended. My oversight ended at Vufamadi Secondary School, a school that was burnt to the ground. It now stands as a state-of-the-art school built in just 3 months by a donor, the Shandukani Foundation, together with the National Lottery. In just 3 months, a quality learning environment is available to learners. But sadly, this has not been afforded to all the learners in the area. Chairperson, historically disadvantaged learners are not getting fair service delivery. Is this because they are not allocated enough funds? Yet, shockingly, the fact is that money allocated to improving these schools is not being spent. For instance, in 2015 and 2016, financial year alone, 424 million was returned to National Treasury instead of being spent on infrastructure. Limpopo alone returned 86 million in that year. And in 2016-2017, it underspent on infrastructure by another 67 million. This is an indictment to our learners, Minister. Learners of Vuzani Secondary School, another school burned down during protest, has to this day not received even one of their allocated literature books. They are forced by an uncaring ANC government to do with photocopies. We learned last week that Limpopo Department of Education has again failed to meet a deadline to deliver textbooks to school. This is after the MEC promised they will be available by the end of March. 531 Limpopo schools are still waiting for crucial maths and science textbooks. Education departments cannot continue to blame bad contractors and implementing agents. The reality is that when these people with underspending and not delivering textbooks happen yearly, it is not to take a long, it is time to take a hard look at the leadership of that province who have been appointed by the ANC. MECs who are repeat offenders must be taken to task. So too must the Minister of Basic Education. Minister.
The time has expired. Thank you.
On a point of order, House Chair.
Order. Order. Is
I
that a
didn't
point
want
of
to
order?
interject while my speaker was still on the podium. But Chair, can you please protect our speaker? I don't know whether the ANC, this is how they impress the people in the gallery. But that is too low, and it's unparliamentary that they should drown our people.
Thank you. Thank you, honorable members. Order. Order, honorable members. Order. Can we afford Honorable Chaisa to give us his speech?
Honorable Chairperson, let me apologize now for doing the unusual of coming to you straight while the member still on the podium. I was just confused. I thought, I missed the opportunity.
You are pardoned.
Yes. The Department of Education has been allocated 23.4 million, the bulk of which now goes to infrastructure, which is very important because we need the building of schools in our areas. The launching of a city, which was just set up now to build these schools, has been failing a little bit, and one of the reasons for failure is that some of the implementing agents, like ITT, has been failing to build these schools. This is one of the reasons now why some of the responsibilities have been taken away from these implementing agents like ITT. However, the monitoring and oversight of ACID has been promised by the department, and this should happen for the progress. The department has got some following or the key priorities that it has got to follow. It has got to improve on the ICT in schools. It has got to focus on the teacher resource centers for teacher professionalization and focus on maths and science, the challenges, which are challenges more especially in the rural schools. There was once called or referred to as the rural allowance, Honorable Chairperson. This rural allowance now seems not to be getting or doing well with the teachers, because if this can be actually practiced, then most teachers will be very much interested in going to the rural areas and teach maths and science. Then some of the challenges that have been found by the Auditor General of South Africa was the non-signing of the performance agreements by the principals and the completion of the whole curriculum, because it has been a problem that the curriculum would be completed in the schools. Again, it has been the ineffectiveness of the districts as it has been related by the principals. It is important, Lord and Chairperson, that now the roles of the districts should be clearly defined, because the district has been given minimum competencies to do their jobs. So they are just rendered powerless. Education department should ensure that there is an alignment of APP with NTP and the MTSF. Then teaching and learning should not be a matter of negotiations between the departments and the unions. It should just happen, because it is one of the negotiables that teacher should teach and learner should learn. Conducive,
1 minute left.
conducive school environment and infrastructure for effective teaching and learning is a matter of urgency. Honorable Chairperson, we are very much against, as I say, against the disruption of schooling and the destruction of property. And this can never take us anywhere forward. And this cannot be tolerated. We need social cohesion in schools and communities so that now these people will work together for the success. And there should be the conducive environment for teaching and learning in our schools, so that there's safety, there's peace, security, then there will be good performance. Basic education department core functions of policy development, the monitoring and implementation of policies, and the oversight role over the provinces. And this should be done in accordance according to National Education Policy Act number 27 of 1996.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Mguni.
House Chair, Minister and Deputy Minister of Basic Education, Ministers and Deputy Ministers, including the MEC of Education from Gauteng, honorable members, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. House Chair, it is indeed a privilege to be granted an opportunity to come here and critically reflect on basic education system as a whole. The chairperson of the Portfolio Committee has already indicated on the challenges and the complexities of providing education within the framework of concurrent function. Regardless of those complexities, the ANC stood up against them in order to ensure that the system of education is efficient and functional. The performance of the system can be measured by two factors, namely the efficiency and the effectiveness. We are born in the EFF, born Gamgesh, niyathanda ukuphapha. Nilandzelana nalabo bululu beni be-DA. Kunokuba nibuka nema-basic education, nigijimisana nema-courts every time nihlula la ma-debate. Niphapha niyele eGauteng, nisukela Cape Town. Let me explain to you, Mpakathi, what is meant by efficiency and effectiveness. A new EFF and DA, please take notes. I'm giving you a free lecture. Efficiency indicates the manner in which the inputs are used by the system. Being efficient means the system uses input in the right way.
Honorable Mguni, just a second to Kalani. Mam Kaula, is that a point of order?
Ngiyabonga. Hayi bengithi umhlonisho lapho ngaphambili akakhulume ngento azokhuluma ngayo la. Ahlukane ne-EFF ngoba akayazi.
Just sit down, Mama.
If the input ratio is adverse, we say that the system is inefficient, though it produces desired output.
Honorable member.
Effectiveness is the measure for deciding whether the system provides the desired output or not. Being effective means producing the right output in terms of quality and quantity. When the system is ineffective, it is out of control and it needs a major correction. A system has to be effective and efficient for the highest utility to the user of the system.
Just hold on a second. Honorable members, yes. we are almost at the end of the debate. Please let us not create chaos. Let us not create chaos in the House. Honorable Kaula.
I'm not playing. Because I'm not coming to play here.
What's your point of order?
Go to Banu no Marashia. The honorable Gashi go to Banu no Marashia. Oskoto baka ubakhuze.
Order.
buza osichotho bakho.
Thank you. Honorable members, please, can we afford Honorable Mnguni to complete his speech?
Broadly speaking, the effectiveness is a measure of the goodness of the output, while the efficiency is a measure of the productivity. That is the measure of the output against the input. I hope you, EFF, your myopicness is now sorted out. I would like then to state that the introduction of Patu education was a tragedy to our country, in that it contributed negatively to the efficiency and effectiveness of education service delivery. It is very clear that such a disaster was well orchestrated and engineered so that it is not easy to undo it. Nina-ke bondlebe khanyilanga be-DA. Angeke nifundzise labantwa benu, nibafundzise kahle. Niyamyekela ke lo mesisi lo libile kusibita ukuthi i-colonization was good la. Ngibakhumbula phela kusathathelwa live la nemnotho wethu. Manje ke kuba kuhle nini manilwa nodwana. Seniyaqala niyabulalana nodwana lapha ya. U-honorable uselfie ulwa na honorable Mahimani. Ngalendzaba yambala intuli lo i-federal chair ye-DA ye-youth. Balwela nje ukuthi lo mesisi ubitele ukuthi uyi-racist. U-honorable Maimane umele ntuli kanti u-honorable selfie umele mesisi. Zintanganye basho njalo ebholeni. The African National Congress prides itself for having made progress in reversing such a system. It took a lot of consultative work with stakeholders in and outside the country for the ANC to create a system through which environment where the previously divided nation is able to at least live together. What was adopted by this democratically elected government was a dysfunctional system of government, which even today, some of its damage still needs attention in education. As the ANC, we still believe that more still need to be done. In our engagement with the department, we noted that it has prioritized the following critical issues: the efficiency and improved institutional performance at all levels of the system, and monitoring of the system across all levels for compliance and efficiency. We are confident that the Department of Basic Education, through this budget, that you disagree with, as usual, EFF, will ensure that there is progression towards sound leadership and management of schools. Ngosi yami, Babe Kaula, bonke laba supported the budget. We want to say thank you very much. Babe Umsimang on behalf Mabe Using. Mara, what we want to tell you is that, yes, we acknowledge there are still math schools. We are aware of them. We are addressing them. Last week, on the 7th of May, the weeks before, the deputy minister, Beila Paya etanun, ivula skolo la sakiwe. Scholar transport, siyati kona ukuthi kune policy that has just been enacted. Provinces are on it, dealing with it. Siya understand that again nenzaba ye religion njengoba Nkhawula Make Khawula kune policy sine SASSA Act 84 of 1996. I'm giving another lesson so that you are going to check. ISASSA iya address the issue of religion. Siyabonga ke futhi Honorable Kubisa for the support that you have given us. Sibonga nema donations lendiwe nguwe ke Make Honorable Magwaza Msibe, and we recognize even your presence. You know, DA, more especially Honorable Davis, you know, you are suffering from one problem. You are self-righteous, egocentric, self-centered, including obsession. We are very much obsessed. In the issue, and we are obsessed about ISATU. Let me tell you, if you want to know more about this union called SATU, I will recommend go and join it and attend all its meetings. You will see what it stands for and what contribution it has done into the education to dismantle your father's apartheid tendencies in education. May I a bit baptize you with the pedagogical information. You know what happened? SATU, when it was created, it created a unitary, non-racial, non-sexist for teachers, which your fathers purported apartheid, and they become with what apartheid what called policies that killed and still are letting our education down. Your fathers were silent those days, and SATU came and became the loudest voice, while your fathers were feeding us with poisonous education. SATU also spearheaded the teaching of mother tongue in all schools, which you, DA, are struggling to understand and fight against. It developed and still developing teachers through workshop, etc. The report for cash has cleared the union for wrongdoing. Your
Chairperson, Chairperson, can you recognize me? Chairperson, can you recognize me?
Order, honorable members.
Will the member take a question?
Honorable Mgun, will you take a question?
I keep on telling you, Masende, please call me. I will come back to you. You
doesn't
understand
need
that?
to call me. Proceed.
DA, you are failing to look at your own internal affairs and indulge in the ANC issues. What are you saying? Governing South Africa in your dreams. The sky will fall. The masses will change their skin. And you say, Honorable Albert, discrimination and racism is non-existent. I don't think we are living in South Africa. Go and check. You will see racism is still in it. With you, Honorable Boshoff, on the issue of inclusive education, I don't know which committee are you sitting on, because in that committee, everything has just been said on inclusive education. Now, there are 223 Braille textbooks that have been adapted. We are strengthening policies such as SIAS and admission and assess and what with regulations.
Thank you, Mgun. Thank you very much. The time is up.
The ANC supports this budget.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Honorable members, those that have spoken, they have said many things on this budget vote. Can we now give the minister an opportunity to give responses to all of us, as well as the guests at the top? Let's hear the responses. Proceed.
No, thank you very much, Chair. Chair, so I really think I have to save my trouble from people who are obsessed with now. I was taught that if you argue, you also end up with how pilang. My advice to Umatarabela na yu Umamumakaula. A national budget as Kulumindaba Bazama province. So Kenya induction. Banichela province, hey, national hip. Leia se Teguin Aingenla. Songs we pendula. So program director gas Gulelo and pendula.
Point of order.
So
point of order, Slal. Again to learn.
Minister, just a second.
Aibo.
Kaula.
Bengishilo ngathi akawukhuza igama likaMarashiya la.
Okay, no, thank you.
Ngicela ukhuze igama likaMarashiya kulabo sichotho bakaZuma wasenkandla.
Thank you, Ma'am Kaula. Honorable members, we don't know Amarashiala. We don't know that person. We don't know that honorable member. Thank you very much. Proceed, Minister.
No, so thank you, Chair. I really want to conclude by also informing the House that during the Cabinet quarter of this year, the President had instructed both the Department of Social Development and Education to develop a program to look at giving opportunities to our young people who are out of school, and will be giving a report. So I really wish, Chair, to conclude by reiterating that the basic education system is definitely a system on the rise. All of us have a duty to ensure that the right of our learners to quality, effective and inclusive and efficient basic education
is non-negotiable. We now have a stable system that looks at the whole development of a child, our future leaders. So we are also excited, Chair, that as we debate this, as we continue with this debate, we continue to cherish the life, the leadership, and the teachings of one of our greatest visionaries and struggle icon of our times, Comrade O.R. Tambo. 27 has been declared a centenary of his birth, of this stalwart. His values, virtues, and legacy have contributed immensely to the freedoms and the rights we now have and enjoy as a democratic South Africa. His love for children is aptly illustrated in what he said, I quote, "The children of any nation are its future. A country, a movement, a person that does not value its youth and children does not deserve the future." So I want to take this opportunity, Chair, to sincerely extend a word of gratitude to my Deputy Minister Seti, the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, all honorable members serving in the committee, the Oversight Committee of Parliament, the different MECs. I can tell you, even your MEC from Western Cape work very well because it's a very matured committee. So we don't keep on pointing fingers because we know that these children are our future. So to all the MECs that I work with, to the HODs and Director General, Tate Mweli and your team, thank you very much, and the senior managers, to SAIS, Umalus, and NECT, that is one of our biggest partners, to our teacher unions, including the biggest of the all, SATU, and all of them. So I want to thank the teacher unions, the principals associations, as well as officials in my office for their diligence and support. And I want to say we're immensely grateful to all the teachers, the principals, the parents, the learners, SGBs, individuals who work tirelessly to make quality, effective, inclusive, and efficient basic education a reality in the various parts of the country. Lastly, but not least, I really want to also thank my family for all the support and can invite members who are obsessed with SATU to say, I'm also willing to give some perspective about the history of SATU because I was privileged as a young teacher to have been part of the small unions which led to this giant, and we're very proud of his achievements and will always respect him.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, let's thank the minister, the deputy minister for leading on this debate. Let's also thank all honorable members that were present here participating and our guests at the top. Members are reminded that the debate on Labour budget vote will take place at 16:15 in the National Assembly chamber. The debate on public service and administration budget vote will take place at 16:15 in the old Assembly chamber, which is here. And the debate on women budget vote will take place at 16:15 in committee room E249. That concludes the debate and the business of this mini plenary session. The mini plenary will now rise. Thank you.